What if the first flower you ever saw was not on Earth, but in the quiet cosmos between distant stars? What if its petals carried the secret songs of ancient worlds, whispered through starlight? I stand in a greenhouse drifting among the galaxies, a lone archivist of life, watching a small bud finally unfurl its petals. For decades I have sailed through the relics of countless planets, carrying seeds in my ship's hold like fragile time capsules. Each seed is a message from a lost world, a living archive of memories. Yet I am odd among my people, a botanist where most are astronomers, a keeper of living things in an age of machines. Colleagues called me a dreamer for salvaging these relics, but to me, each kernel held endless possibility. In the silence of space, I learned the names of flowers and ferns long gone from their homeworlds. Anemones, orchids, lilies, all recorded in my databanks. But I had only ever read about them, not seen them with my own eyes. Our starship's laboratory is a living vault of life. We call it the Ark Garden, a sanctuary built beneath synthetic skies where sunlight is simulated by LED stars and water flows in a gentle stream. For me, this room is half laboratory, half cathedral. Fluids pump softly and fans stir the air. I speak to it as if praying in an ancient temple of growth. On one wall, ribbons of data scroll endlessly. Humidity, pH, nutrient levels. But there is no sight like a living leaf. The soil is dark and rich, teeming with nutrients. In these hands I feel the grains warm and alive, rich with microscopic life doing its secret work. To me, soil was once just data and code. Now, it is real beneath my fingers, warm, alive. Long ago on Earth, the first true flowers appeared in primeval wetlands. I recall the records, about 140 million years before now, when dinosaurs still roamed warm green forests, tiny water lilies and marsh flowers unfurled in secret. Those early blooms were simple, often growing by streams and pools where nutrients and sunlight nourished them. Earth's atmosphere then was heavier, more humid, like an eternal summer. Vast jungles and swamps exhaled mist and oxygen, creating primeval symphonies of rain and life. Among that life, the first flowers began their quiet conquest. On our console, I read of a fossil called Archaefructus, an aquatic relative of modern water lilies that lived where plants sprouted by the shore. Its blooms were tiny but complete. To honor that heritage, I fill my chamber with gentle water flows and warm light, hoping to mimic that ancient cradle of life. With careful hands I water the seedbed, whispering a greeting in the old earth tongue. I unseal the packet containing the seed, a tiny ember of brown, nothing special in appearance. Each grain of its coating is hard and ancient, but inside burns the code of life. I pour enriched water onto the tray and cover it gently. Awake and grow, I say quietly, half to myself, half in hope. Time stretches. For days, nothing happens. Doubt tempts me as I wait. Moisture, temperature, all remain perfect. I even play a distant melody, an ancient earth lullaby, to comfort the quiet earth, but still, the seed sleeps. Then, in the fifth cycle, it stirs. I lean forward. There, a tiny green tip piercing the darkness. I press my palm against the glass, but hold back, afraid to break the spell. "Hello, little one," I whisper. "I will guide you." Each morning I come with fresh eyes to watch. The first leaf opens. Each new leaf unfurls like a solar sail, soaking up the LED light as if it were the sun itself. It is absorbing light and making food. Photosynthesis is happening right before my eyes. Every exhale I take now contains a little more oxygen. This gives me a thrill. One plant, one breath at a time, helping the ship stay alive. This flower is a genetic heirloom. Within its cells, DNA spirals trillions of times, a code billions of letters long. That code traces a lineage through time, from the first simple mosses and ferns inching onto land hundreds of millions of years ago, through pines and cycads that once towered like giants, and finally to this shy, flowering descendant. On Earth today, flowering plants ultimately dominated. Roughly 80% of all plant species on Earth are angiosperms. So this modest bloom represents a long family tree that now fills our history. For months, I continued to nourish the plant. Its stem thickened, more leaves unfurled. I even found myself whispering sweet encouragement. "Grow strong," I would murmur at dawn. Nights became full of wonder and watchfulness. I sometimes wondered if I was a fool, tending this tiny plant while stars danced around me. In the silence, I imagined ancient pollinators, bees and butterflies of Earth, visiting flowers, brushing pollen as they danced. There are no insects here. I have become the pollinator of this lonely bloom. Then one morning, the bud swells and soft color appears at the edges. I inhale sharply. My heart races as the bud pulses. Petal by petal, layers unfold with elegant slowness. They form rings, each slightly larger than the last. Shades of ivory deepen to lavender at the center, a color I never witnessed before. It is as if the flower has captured the palette of a sunset. The petals seem to catch the greenhouse light. Really catch it, as if they were tiny mirrors. When a breeze passes, they quiver slightly, as if the flower itself is breathing. I cannot move. I am rooted in place as the bloom completes itself. As the last petal locks into place, I realize I have been holding my breath. As it opens fully, I remember what a flower truly is. The reproductive organ of a plant, arranged in perfection. Before me lies not just beauty, but biology in its most exquisite form. A bright ring of golden stamens encircles a single coral-colored pistil at the center. It looks like an altar to life. Ancient Earth botanists would recognize this pattern. Multiple petals in concentric whorls, a radial symmetry that echoes the orbits of planets. It reminds me of sacred geometry. I carefully extend a gloved hand toward the bloom. I dip a tiny brush into the circle of stamens, where pollen rests like fine powder. A myth I knew whispers in the back of my mind. The first flower on Earth was bisexual, bearing both male and female parts in one bloom. Science calls it hermaphroditic, though to me it simply means one flower contains the miracle of its own beginning. With tenderness, I transfer pollen to the pistil. Perhaps soon a seed will form, ensuring this lineage continues. In the quiet aftermath, I sit beside my bloom and share stories as if with a friend. I tell it of Earth's lost cherry blossoms celebrated by humans every spring, and how poets likened their petals to pink clouds. I tell it of the lotus in Eastern legends, rising from mud to show purity. Though it is an alien world away, this flower listens. In another part of the ship, I play footage of a human astronaut aboard the International Space Station, showing off a tiny orange zinnia flower. He laughs. Yes, there are other life forms in space. That simple experiment proved something. Life reaches for the light anywhere it can. His joy echoes in me. Separated by centuries and light years, he and I share this wonder. The warm glow of the greenhouse lights softens as the day cycle ends. My eyes sting with tears, yet in this silence, my heart melts for a blossom. It is strange, an alien shedding a tear for a flower. Yet this bloom, grown from a remnant of a forgotten world, feels like hope incarnate. I turn and exit the chamber, leaving the flower under its soft lights as I slip into my small, sleeping pod. Yet even as I drift towards sleep, I know I will be listening for her breath. Suddenly, as simulated dusk settles over the petals, something moves. I blink. The inner chamber of the flower shimmers for a heartbeat, like a tiny galaxy swirling inside. Did the flower sense me? Was it trying to communicate? I pause at the doorway. A soft chime rings somewhere behind me, perhaps the environmental controls switching modes. My lab sensors flicker. Nothing abnormal is found. The flower now sits still in silence. Only the distant hum of the ship is audible. Its petals are closed, gently, as if folding in on itself. What secrets lie hidden in its pollen, or deep inside its delicate heart? This tiny life has given me more questions than answers. I whisper, "Who are you, little one?" The flower answers nothing, but in its silence I feel echoes of generations. In that hush, a new question blooms. In the vast silence of the cosmos, who else is listening to its song?